Welcome to Santa Barbara Talks with Josh Molina. It's a pleasure today to be here with Dean Wilson, who is president and CEO of the Turner Foundation and also the host of the Good Life TV, a very inspirational television show that I've sort of watched a little bit from afar over the years and sort of gotten into several of the episodes lately. And we're going to have a fantastic conversation about Dean and his mission, his goals, his positivity, his faith, and just kind of have a robust conversation about all the things that are at the center of his life. Dean Wilson, how are you doing today?
Great, Josh. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking time. I have watched you kind of from afar on TVSB, and you have your shows also available widely, on YouTube and other places. And I was been always struck by your enthusiasm for life, your optimism. You're obviously a man of faith. And I was recently at the Santa Barbara Prayer Breakfast, and I heard you talk there, and that was a great event as well. So I just kind of wanted to dive right in, Dean, and sort of talk to you about you and your approach and your show. What are you trying to do with your show, and why is goodness so important and essential to sort of your story and your mission?
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, we can probably talk a little bit about my personal story at some point. I with this show about 4 years ago, we had a interest in bringing something forth that was dwelling on the good stuff and the great stories. And you know this because you've been a journalist and you talk to people all the time. But what I've found is in doing this for 4 years, we've taped, I think, 271 shows, and I every single time, and I don't say that, I really mean that. I've been just surprised and struck by the genius, the beauty, the goodness, the gifts that are in each person. I think it's been really an amazing experience for me to do this, because every time the person that sits on that couch, I mean, most of the time I've read I do my research, I've read their bio and I've read about them and what they've done, but I'm still surprised that just at the stories that come out, the personal, the gifting, the God-given abilities, the passions, the suffering that some people have been through and overcome. We've had people from all walks of life, famous people, mostly not famous people. We've had, public servants, athletes, coaches, CEOs, entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, kids, older people with amazing life stories. And so the purpose of Good Life and kind of what my heart is that, we get to choose what we dwell on. And in this world of, where it's very noisy and there's a lot of fighting and it's only gotten worse, and there's a lot of division. There's a lot of, focus on the negative, and there's plenty of reasons to fight. If you're looking for a reason to fight, you'll find one. But we get to choose what we dwell on. And so when all of a sudden we're dwelling on the good stuff and the overcoming and there's a scripture about this that says, whatever's good, whatever's pleasant, whatever's noble, whatever's beautiful, whatever's, praiseworthy, dwell on these things. And so that to me is kind of an encouragement that, we get to choose what we dwell on. And so what we want to do at Good Life is help people to dwell on and learn and hear from and be inspired by and encouraged by these guests that I get the privilege of kind of unpacking the present, when we do these interviews. And man, it's been a stunning, wonderful experience. Sometimes, and it's not flashy necessarily. I mean, we've had some famous people, but mostly it's the lady in Ventura who's doing a food bank or a clothing closet or or the family that's adopted, nobody knows about. Nobody knows. They're not on TV usually, except for my show. I mean, they don't get noticed. These families that that have adopted, and it's been tough, it's not all, and Josh, another thing, it's not all flowery and like, it's not like about what you think about when you hear about the good life, like fancy cars and, high fences and, like wealth and, perfection. That's not it at all. It's about the real good life. Everybody's looking for the real good life. In fact, I think there's a class at Harvard or Yale about the good life. It's the class that's most in demand on campus. They line up because everybody wants the good life. And I think the world can trick you sometimes into thinking, well, if I climb the ladder, or if I, work hard enough or make enough money or have enough success, that I'll have the good life. And then unfortunately you get to the top of the ladder and it's not there. The real good life is things like perseverance and faith and love and joy and, overcoming and all that. And so I think I've learned a lot in this 4-year journey. It's been so wonderful to unpack these gifts of these amazing people. Again, not perfection. And by the way, we don't gloss over difficulty. We've had parents that have lost kids. We've had special needs situations. We've had, addiction and brokenness. Like, it's not glossing over. It's not, we can face it. We can handle the truth. Like, we talk about the real stuff, but what we're dwelling on is the beauty in all this. And so it's been fun. I'm so grateful to get to do this. I'm so grateful for all the guests and viewers, and I just want to keep going, because I'm like, the more that I've done this, I'm like, people ask, well, how long do you want to do this? I'm like, well, we have 360 million Americans. I've got a ways to go. We're only at 271. I'd love to do this the rest of my life, God willing. We'll see what happens, but it's been really fun, and a great adventure for us.
Yeah, there's no doubt that you can't walk away from watching one of your episodes and not be more appreciative of someone's personal story or the good things that happen all around us that we may not know about. And it's tough because, as a journalist, like, one of our core sort of teachings is we write about things where there's conflict, right? Like, we write about things where there's a breakdown in the system. And so journalists have to shine a light on that and hold systems or individuals accountable.
Yeah.
So media often gets sort of this like reputation for being, oh, well, you only focus on the negative. And so there are people who get that, it's like, well, we're not focusing on the negative. We're focusing on this problem and how do we fix it?
Yeah.
There's always an appetite for just goodness, like positivity. What are the good stories in the community that don't have sort of this challenge or this issue? And so I think you do a good job of tapping into that. And also, everyone's got a story, right? Everybody's sort of got something in them that they've overcome. Dean, I know you're a Westmont grad. Talk to me a little bit about you and your upbringing, and how did you find God? How did you find faith? Were you straight out of the womb, a man of purpose, or did you get there through other experiences in your life?
Yeah. Thank you. I was raised in Orange County down in Southern California, and I was a pastor's son. My grandfather was also a minister. He was from Ireland. He was an evangelist. So I was certainly raised in the faith, and I did early on make a decision in that regard. And I always loved God. I for some reason that's where I've landed. I liked him. I loved him. I knew he loved me. And I was on that journey. I went to Westmont and had a great experience at Westmont, met my wife at Westmont and a lot of really dear friends of mine. And grew, and I'm the biggest Westmont college fan that you'll probably meet. We have had 7 family members go to Westmont, including our oldest daughter who just graduated last December. So we're huge Westmont fans. I love the college. And then we embarked on our life. I went to work on Wall Street, for a firm called Morgan Stanley, and did that work. Ended up moving over to Wachovia Bank and did that work for 8 years, and then ended up deciding to move out of that business and do some other things, including kind of some of the ministry oriented, real estate oriented, nonprofit oriented work here and in Dallas. We had our family in Dallas, Texas for 10 years. So I've been entrepreneurial and I love building things. I love dreaming and rallying other people with me to do something great. And then that's what I try to do as best I can. Somewhere along, we did have a special needs child 21 years ago. It's a very stressful and tough thing to walk through. It's ended up being a huge blessing, one of the greatest gifts we've ever been given, but it was certainly challenging. And we had 5 kids total. She was number 2 in the lineup, and I broke down. I really pretty much crashed. About 13 years ago, I started drinking. And interestingly, I never had a drink till I was 21 years old. Funny enough, but I've made up for it. In my 30s, and then I started to deal with stress, and in a way that became dependent on alcohol. And it was kind of a frog in a frying pan experience for me. It grew. Alcoholism in general, just like a lot of other addictions, are progressive. They don't get better with time. They get worse. You don't kind of plateau and kind of keep it at a certain level. It ends up taking you to places you never thought you'd go. And that happened to me. It took me down. And I think, I believe in God, and I also believe that there's an enemy. And I really think the enemy's goal was to kind of destroy me. And he almost did. I was in a real bad place and got completely wrapped up in this thing. And it was a dark, tough season. I was still running companies at the time. And I did have some, made some, had some blow ups along the way, as typical people that are in that do. Blew up a lot of relationships, friendships. I was just not me. And so it took me down. I think it was November 4th, 2010. I woke up and the house was empty, which was a scary thing. And it was we came to a point where my wife, took our kids, and nothing violent. I don't want to alarm anybody. There was no, nothing, none of that. It was just a point where she had said, this has got to change. And that was a very courageous act on her part. And so that led me to going away to treatment for, I was away, I think 51 days from my family. I was down in South Texas, near the Guadalupe River in South Texas, at a treatment center for the first 33 days. And then I was in another house of friends of ours who ran a program. I was there for the rest of it. And I think at that point, Josh, I really, you talk about found God. I certainly believed early on in my life, but I never found God like I did in that one-room cabin by myself one night in November of 2010. That I had a real experience with the grace and mercy of God, because I thought I lost everything at that point in time. I thought I'd lost the businesses, potentially my marriage and kids. I had blown through a lot of friendships along the way. I literally thought I have nothing. And so when I was desperate, and there's nothing I could do. I had no technology. No email, zero, no music. I had my Bible and some clothes and toiletries, and I'm in this one-room cabin. And you want to talk about long days. the days get real long when you're not checking Instagram and taking calls and being with your friends or whatever, man, the days get long. Yeah. So I'm walking the hills in South Texas. I am crying out to God. And then but I'm not doing well. and then this one night I was literally on my face on the floor. It's a wood floor in this one room cabin by myself. And I was crying out to God, desperate. And I had an experience with God. It was almost a physical experience. Like I was overwhelmed by mercy. I like you. I love you. I'm with you. And it was this amazing night that changed me. And I wrote about it in my little journal thing that I had because I was the next day, because I was like, what just happened? And that started something new, because I was trying to achieve. And I was building my life, I think, on some false foundations like money, achievement, even my family. Your family can become an idol, actually, because you think, oh, look at me, So everything was out the window, and I was left with, what if I'm just Dean, like just this guy? Like, what if it's stripped down to Dean, like no title, no this, that, not even really any friends. I mean, it was got pretty thin in the friend department, and I actually ended up feeling okay. Like, actually, I think I'm okay. God loves me. God likes me. God forgives me. I experienced that grace, and that really changed me. That since then it is, obviously life's not without its bumps, but fundamentally I had to really go. The scripture talks about the threshing floor when you're kind of pounded into oblivion in some cases. I really had to go to the threshing floor in my own life, and I did, and I don't want to go back there. But I'm grateful, because I really got, I think, had a profound encounter that changed my life. So I'm grateful. I ended up, obviously my wife stayed, and we and our kids, and I ended up rebuilding, and by the grace of God. And I feel like I'm just grateful. I feel like, I don't deserve, it's not about deserving or earning anymore. It's like everything is a gift. So I'm so grateful for what I get to do now. I'm so grateful for my family. I'm so grateful that I'm still here, and that, that this thing didn't completely take me down, but it was quite a deal. And so I don't gloss over that part of my story. I got to share this in 2022 at that prayer breakfast. I got to actually share my whole story, which was kind of fear and trembling to like say it out loud. Let me tell you about my worst moments, but I decided to do that. I'm so grateful that I did, and just put it out there that, hey, this happened, and this is a problem, and something I've dealt with, and so, yeah, so that's that. My faith journey certainly has not been like this one hit wonder kind of thing where I just came to God at 8 years old and it's been great. In my case, it's been a journey. It's had bumps, it's had suffering, it's had difficulty. Suffering, I think suffering can come in the form of self-inflicted suffering, like a lot of mine was related to drinking. And then there's suffering that comes on you in life, like, having a severely brain damaged child that, we didn't do anything to make that happen, but it happened. And so suffering can, and people deal with suffering all the time. I mean, and suffering is a big part of life. But when I tell my story or I share, I don't edit out the parts. I try not to edit out I mean, nobody needs all the gory details, but I try to tell the truth about, hey, here's what happened, and here's what I dealt with and deal with. And hopefully that gives hope to somebody. But so, yeah, it's been a great journey. I still love God. I trust him. I depend on him. In that time, I learned something about being utterly dependent on God. And I try to stay in a posture of being dependent. So even if things are going better, sometimes that can be more challenging to remain utterly dependent, because you can start to go on your own skills and gifts and strengths and think that, okay, I got this, but the truth is I don't got this. And I want to remain having a posture of dependence on him. And that's what I try to do, because that's the best place to live. He's so good and so able and so loving that he's one that can be depended on. So that's why I try to stay in that posture.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that story, because it takes a lot of strength, courage, vulnerability. And I know you shared it at the prayer breakfast a year ago, but thank you, because people will relate and identify and take inspiration from that. And, alcohol is such an insidious disease, because it's one of those things where as a culture we embrace, right? We endorse it. It's like you can get it at the liquor store, at this grocery store, and there's commercials and football and the whole
Right.
thing. But, we all know quietly behind the scenes, it destroys families, because you in the public, like, if you have a prominent person, they may not see the alcoholism, but the family members do when they go home.
That's right.
And so it's so horrible, because we embrace the happy hour culture.
Right.
But at home, who pays for that? The children, the spouses, the family members.
Yeah.
And it's not something you can just like kick. Like it's a disease, and
I think, yeah, you're so right. And there's that, the whole cultural kind of thing. But I felt that way, Josh. I mean, there was, alcohol works until it doesn't, right? Just like most things, it works until it doesn't. And, some people get hooked on whatever. We're all probably hooked on something, whether it's workaholism or pornography or prescription drugs or alcohol or this or that or this or that, but they all work, pretty much until they don't. But so alcohol, I mean, I'd go into a party, I'd feel, 10 feet tall and bulletproof with some alcohol. Yeah. And then for a while, it's kind of like, all right, this is nice. I like, you kind of lose your inhibitions or insecurities. And then you realize it doesn't work. Yeah. You're number one, you're an idiot. Oftentimes. And there's a joke my brother Johnny and I always say, when do you know you're an alcoholic? And the answer is about 2 years after everybody else. So you do make an idiot out of yourself from time to time, but you and then also, what I came to discover was that I started to like myself sober. Yeah. And I was like, oh, wow. Well, maybe I'm not, I don't need to do this to try to be like, it's a different thing when you come to a place where you forgive yourself and then you actually begin to like yourself. And to be able to go into a party, or I go to parties all the time, or social situations where everybody's drinking, and to be able to be good and okay and actually happy and, without having that happen because I had to have, 4 drinks before I went to the party, or, so that's been a nice change, where it's like, okay, well, actually I don't need this. And for me, I don't begrudge anybody to drink. I think 85 or whatever, they say 5% or whatever, 10% of the population has kind of this issues, if you want to frame it as a disease or whatever. So I think most people, can have a drink or 2 or whatever, and there's no issue and it's totally fine. Like, so I don't begrudge anybody from drinking. It's the dependence. It's am I looking to alcohol as to comfort me, to deal with problems, to function. Yeah. And that's where it is an issue, is okay, all of a sudden I need this, and then the drinking's owning you, you're not owning the drinking. Right. And so I yeah, you're right. In a culture that kind of glorifies it, I think we have to be careful. I think, especially with our young people, we just have to be careful that that this isn't glorified to a point where it's not telling the truth about the damage it does, because it does. You're exactly right. And even if there's not physical violence or stuff in the home, there can be a emotional wall, right? Oftentimes, some mentor that I've looked up to said that. He said, it was competing for my affections. There was something happening emotionally with my kids or emotionally with my friends where I wasn't there. I wasn't available.
Right.
Because alcohol had kind of taken over my affections. I think that's a damaging thing. So you're so right. I mean, it does damage. It is insidious, and it does damage to marriages and friendships, even if there's not outbursts or DUIs or something that's very obvious. It can be subtle and under the surface. So I'm in my case, I'm done drinking, and it's been a really good thing for me. I'm so grateful for that. And my next drink will be in heaven. I heard they have great wine, so I'm looking forward to that. But there won't be any addiction or any problem there. So my next drink will be in heaven.
Yeah, well, that's a drink to look forward to for sure. Yeah, just people who are around alcoholism, they learn to read people's moods instantly,
right?
Like, is dad drunk today? Is he sober? And so you learn to, even though there's no DUI or there's no big domestic violence thing, although we do know alcohol can lead to those things too. It's something as simple as the child's like, how do I need to react to this parent right now, this person right now? And they don't understand that child grows up, and then they become distrustful, they become paranoid, they become skeptical because they can't ever trust someone to be linear and the same all the time. They're always wondering, when is the
shoe going to drop
to happen? And so that's like one of the challenges. So it's great that you were able to overcome that.
And by the way, I'm especially with our older children. I mean, I am still doing the work to repair the damage that was done. So we've done counseling. I want the damage that was done to be fully repaired. I want the relationships restored, and I've told everybody I'm willing to crawl on broken glass to get to, because I own it. It was my fault and nobody else. So I'm committed for the rest of my life to repair damage and restore relationships that were damaged in that process. That's not easy, by the way. That's not easy. I thought, I didn't anticipate that. That's not easy at all. So I'm doing that, and I encourage, obviously the 12 steps, talk about making amends and restoring as far as it's up to you if it doesn't cause pain for other people. And I think that's a great principle for life, by the way, that you need to own it, make amends, make things right, and then try to repair and restore relationships, because it's carnage. There can be a lot of carnage, a lot of collateral damage. And so I'm committed to that.
Yeah. Well, you have a beautiful family based off of, what I've seen with your photos and your website and, you in the community. So, you're definitely doing good work there, and they love you, through all of this. Yeah. I want to ask you a little bit about your faith with God and how that intersects with just sort of works out there in the world, because we know, we've always lived in these times, particularly now with everyone having a perspective of social media and the internet, is that sometimes if you bring up that you're faith-filled or that you believe in God or that you're a Christian, it's a turnoff to people who don't believe that, and they automatically think, oh, that means you're anti this, you're anti that, you're a hater, you're judging. And in my experience, there are people who obviously do that, but there are also a lot of Christians who feel like, no, we don't do that, and we're not judging anyone. We just feel a certain way about certain things in the world. But can you talk about how you speak to people, whether it's through the Turner Foundation or just you through the Good Life, who are automatically like, oh, you're a Christian, that means you're anti this, and I can't be your friend. How do you navigate those
Right.
conversations?
Yeah, that's so true. And unfortunately, Christians, I think, have some, and some parts have earned that reputation, and it's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate. And it's not God. What God wants us to do is love people, serve people. I certainly believe politically you can stand for your convictions, but you don't have to do it in a way that's destructive, and you don't have to do it in a way that's judgmental. There's no room for judgment. You can believe something, and you can believe it, and you can stand with that. I think, on either side, I think the division in the malice, Abraham Lincoln talked about malice toward none. The problem we have right now is there's malice on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And in the heart of God, there's no malice. So if we have malice towards political opponents or towards people who don't believe like we do, we got a problem. So the first thing to do is we have to check our heart. People of faith better check their heart, because even if you're believing something about the culture or you want to stand, fine, but there can't be malice, and same, on both sides. And also, we can't cancel each other. We can't say you're not allowed to talk. That's not America either. So we can't. So we have to have malice toward none. And then we can't. We have to let people talk. Let people talk. And I try to have I have great love for people, right, left, center. I don't care. Mm-hmm. I love people. So that's my personal take, is that, malice toward none would not be a bad, goal at this point. Even the people that you greatly disagree with, or I think malice toward none is what has to be in our heart. And so, I operate, if I'm not very political in terms of, talking about stuff. The Turner Foundation certainly is not. Turner Foundation's a 501c3 public charity. We have housing, fair housing. We accept everybody. We just want to serve. We want to lift people up. And I think if there's one thing, that brings people together, actually, is service. Both sides of the aisle, I think, have a heart to serve people, like care for people, I would hope. They might do it in different ways, but we need to have a heart of service, which is what Jesus modeled. I mean, Jesus was God, in my opinion, and he was interested in foot washing. He wasn't wealthy. He didn't own a house. He wasn't dominating people or judging or, creating division, unnecessary division. He was who he was. He was clear about who he was. I love that. He was on mission. But fundamentally, foot washing was kind of one of the things. He was big on serving. And so I think if we serve, it brings people from all walks of life. Most people have an interest in helping others. That's who we're made to be. And so I think that's actually something that unites us. I think Carl Jung had the famous quote where he said, modern man can't see God because he doesn't look low enough. I think sometimes we don't, if we want to fight and we want to tell the other person what's wrong with them all the time, number one, it's exhausting. Number two, it really doesn't get us anywhere. We can have the Congress can have robust debates, and we can, do that. But fundamentally, as regular Joe average citizens, I mean, serving is the way. And if we serve together, I mean, that happens at the Turner Foundation. We have people from all points on the spectrum. We people that and partners, and I see other nonprofits that are doing amazing work. When the focus is on serving, then all that nonsense and division and fighting kind of becomes secondary, which I love. So we're about service. I think you're right. I think Christians, unfortunately, have gotten a reputation as angry and as, judgmental, and that can happen. That can happen. And any kind of posture where it's like, I had a mentor of mine who was a Catholic priest many years ago. I went down and see him in Riverside. He'd been a friend of our family for 30 years. really respected him. And he said, Dean, I think I have identified the most dangerous words in the English language. And I was like waiting on bated breath, like, well, what is this going to be? He said the words, I'm better than you.
Yeah.
I reflected on that for many years. If we have a posture or attitude or belief that I'm better than you because of how I believe or because I'm religious or whatever the reason, that's not good. That's very dangerous, because then we're looking down, and then the other person can feel it. The other person can feel that I'm better than you. So you can have your strong convictions. No one wants to take those away, but you can't have an attitude of I'm better than you or have malice in your heart, because then nobody cares what you believe. It turns out nobody cares. But if you love, if you live a life of love, and you're accepting and you're tolerant and you're gracious and compassionate and serving, they might actually have an interest in what you believe. At that point, they might say, you know what is the deal? And then you can say, well, God's changed my life, which in my case he has. But we need to go back, Josh. I really believe, keep the strong convictions. That's not the point. But malice toward none. No more, I'm better than you. You're not. But you're not. And believe me, I was humbled like you can't believe. Some people have to get humiliated to be humbled. That was my case. I had to be on the ground, where I couldn't even see straight to get to a place. I got to turn this off. Hold on.
Sure. Go ahead.
Alexa, turn off. Don't you hate it when she just starts playing music in the middle of an interview? So anyway, that's a long answer to. I'm sorry if I went on. Yeah. I think you're onto something. I think we need, Christian people of faith in general need to make sure that we always keep humble and check our hearts, and malice toward none, focus on service. And again, that doesn't have to mean you check all of your convictions at the door. You can have those. Nobody's trying to take those away on either side.
Right.
But it's the heart.
I've always found most of the time you get in a room and you get to know somebody, you have a conversation and you share about your lives, that you find that you learn to, the minimum, develop some empathy, but you might actually have things in common.
Right.
And you learn to get away from party registration or labels, right, and be like, oh yeah, we kind of agree here and would do the same thing in these situations, even though we're supposedly different, and yep. I think that's it. And also, I do think that there's a lot of misunderstanding, right? I think that people on the left don't understand that whatever you fear is probably not real with most Christians. And then I think some Christians get it wrong too, in that they think, oh, all of you are out to think this one thing. But, we're much more united if we actually talk. And I always tell everybody, stop watching cable news, stop watching these talk shows, whether it's Fox News or MSNBC or One America, stop, because that's not real. We have to go out into the real world and interact with people. And as a community, we depend on each other. We don't want to be living silos, separately, look at their protest. Here's our protest. Look at their issues. Here's our issues. Ideally, you can find some common ground in the middle. Yeah, totally. Too many people pay attention to that national conversation, which is all about entertainment, right? It's not about real
ratings. Yeah,
exactly. So if you do volunteer in the community, you got to interact with people. You learn to like people.
No, totally, Josh, and that's what I love about you, by the way. I mean, and journalists like you. I mean, it's that part of the national media is really suffering, to put it mildly, because it's basically like we have these cable networks that are devoted to one side, and then if you watch that all night, you're going to be angry by the end of the night, and you're gonna think that the other side is truly destroying the country by tomorrow at noon. That's the narrative, and it is ratings generated and personality generated, and So it's very divisive and destructive. I love real journalists like you who are willing to, call balls and strikes and get to know people. You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
Oh,
The vast majority of human beings, well, whatever side they're on, you have to get to know them.
yeah.
And you'll find out they're probably, they're probably people who are just trying to put food on the table, love their family, but think differently than you do about whatever issue. Fine.
Yeah, I taught a class called engagement journalism at CSUN a year ago, and I talked about people's fault lines, meaning not like personal fault, but where they stand. And so much of how we feel is based off of our geography. Like, where were we raised? Where were we born?
Yep.
What was our experience? So you're born in Orange County, the son of
Yep.
a pastor,
Right.
conservative Orange County. Like, it
Right.
makes sense that you're going to go down that route, right? And somebody else who's not born in that environment, it makes sense that they're going to go down a certain route. Neither is better. Like,
Right.
no one is. You're not better if you're wealthier. You're not better
Right.
if you are first, generation to do something. Everybody has value and impact, and I think we tend to look at things from our own personal, like, this is my experience, and anyone who disagrees with it is wrong. And so we have to understand, like, your experience is your gift, it's your asset, it's your voice, and you bring that into the world to affect other people. And hopefully they learn from you and you learn from them. And I think that's a good attitude. I always say great journalism is like as close to God as you can get in the secular world, because it's truth, it's honesty. Like,
That's right.
actually trying to just, here's information as inclusive as possible, and here it is, and you can decide for yourself. And you can do that with local journalism. You get on the network and it's like all about entertainment. But I think these are good reminders to think about. I know you talked about your, obviously one of the biggest challenges of your life. So I want to just sort of ask you, like for people, you're a son of a pastor. You obviously talk and lead prayers, and you're very spiritual in the community. But what'd you say to people who are saying, "Oh, the good life"? Come on, that's easy for you to say because excuse me, you're excuse me, you have a certain way of life. Your standard of living is good. You're doing well, but here I am. I have X, Y, and Z challenges, and no one is helping me, and I'm all on my own. And it's hard to be good all the time and have that positive aspect when I'm struggling to pay the rent. What would you say to people, no matter where they're at?
Yeah.
It's important to focus on the positive.
Yeah. And certainly I get it in terms of I've been down and out and by no means wealthy. I mean, we're obviously we're living in Santa Barbara, which is unbelievable, but we're grinding. I understand grinding, just to both parents working in the home and trying to provide. It's not easy these days, even for regular quote unquote people, the middle class. I mean, it's gotten even tough recently with just making it, but I've also been down and out. I totally get it. And that's why our heart is to help those folks. So low income people, I mean, well, that's why we do the hopeful housing model that we do at the Turner Foundation. We try to help them, serve them practically. So I get it. What my message would be, in terms of good life, I believe good life, real good life, not cars, because cars don't get you there. Cars don't get you there. A big house, even if you had an estate in Montecito and cars and whatever, you still have to live there. Wherever you are, wherever you go, there you are, right? The good life is an inside job, and I believe it's of course, in my experience, I believe it's really really related to faith, and but I believe that real good life is available to everybody. It's available to people. I have friends, very close friends in Kenya, where if you look at the average earnings for the year or what they're living on, Oftentimes I think in places like the United States, we actually have no idea how many people in the world are living. And I've had Zoom calls recently with some of these Kenyan friends and talking and encouraging and helping, but I believe the good life. So I talked to this guy named Adams the other day. He contacted me on Instagram, saw our TV show, contacted me. I reached out and he says, "Can we talk?" So we talk. Here's a kid. I think he's 18. He's in Nairobi. You talk about challenges, but I believe, and I shared this with him in terms of turning to God, believing that real good life is available to anybody in the world, and it's even available if the circumstances don't necessarily improve immediately, because I believe you can find peace and joy and in with God. That's my personal opinion, and that's my experience. And so therefore it is available to everyone. Now we want circumstances to improve, and that's why we're trying to do everything we can for as many people as we can, special needs families. The foundation house we started is 18 to 24-year-old kids who are homeless, which is a huge problem in the county. You wouldn't know that, but it's a problem. We're trying to get 2 more of those houses started this year. Why? Because we want to help. We certainly want to help circumstantially, but fundamentally, I believe the good life is an inside job, and it has to do with your faith journey with God. I think it's available. And it's not available only if you get this problem solved, because that cycle will never end. Oh, if I only get this job. Oh, if I only had this wife. Oh, if I only had, we can do that all day long, our whole lives.
Yeah.
Well, if this circumstance changes, then I'll be good. I'm thinking about that right now. For me, here's some major challenges. I don't want to live a life where it's always about, well, once I get here, then I'll be okay. Well, no, this is life. I don't even have tomorrow. I've had friends drop dead. My healthiest people, they take a run and have a brain aneurysm, or I have a friend, cancer comes. Like, time is short. Time is very short on earth. And I believe the good life's available for everybody, but it can't just be circumstantially based. And so that's easy. It's easy to criticize somebody who's saying that, who's sitting in an office like this. Well, I say it to my friends in Nairobi, and believe me, I've had the experience of going from the haves to like being down and out. Mm-hmm. So I totally understand. I've gone to a clothing closet at a rehab center to get a new T-shirt because I needed to. That's where I was. Yeah. So my heart, I have huge compassion. And somebody who's bound up in addiction, whatever it is, if you're watching, like, I get it. And life is this is no picnic. We're on planet Earth, and life can be very hard. That's not at odds to me with the fact that the good life's available. Life can be there's somebody right now, Josh, as we're taping this program, who's walking into an oncology clinic, right? To start and fighting for their life, right? We have to, circumstances are hard, and, life is short. And that's why I think we need to focus on the good life and the good stuff. And I think you can do it as an 18-year-old kid in Nairobi who doesn't know, trying to get his next meal, like the kid I talked to, or somebody in Montecito who has the big house but is totally empty and just popping pills because they don't have any peace. Yeah. Same thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. No.
So anyway, that's another long answer, but I really believe the good life's available. I really think it's not, you don't have to get the cars and the houses to get there. It's something that can happen, and it's an inside thing. And I believe, and then in the meantime, we want to serve. We want to try to serve as many people as we can. That's our heart. How can we help? How can we serve? How can we bless? How can we provide? In our case, it's mostly around housing, but we want to do whatever we can. And that's how I want to spend my life, is trying to focus on how we can help.
Yeah, you probably don't listen to her, but one of my favorite artists is Alanis Morissette, and she has a song called Incomplete, and she talks about stop trying to get to the finish line. Yeah. Life is incomplete, and enjoy every step along the way. because if you're always worried about the next big thing, you aren't enjoying what you're experiencing right now. And
100%.
that theme is universal. And for me, the good life is hearing my children laugh, right?
Yes. Yes.
Watching them eat. Like watching them eat is such like, wow, they're getting pleasure out of eating and they're enjoying themselves and it's fulfillment. You know,
Totally.
that's a good life. And whether that's in
Yep.
an apartment or house or mansion or, you know, on the sidewalk or wherever, like that is what matters. And I think people need to remember you don't find rewards from things or even like other people in their validation of you. You find rewards in what you can experience in your home. And
I totally,
it's just
absolutely.
you, then it's your own laugh, right? But
Yep.
it's appreciating you and
Yep.
you know, what you can control and manage and what you're responsible for. You know, you can't change the world if your house is in disarray.
Yep.
And that's something.
Totally, Josh. That's exactly right. And you get, and that's right. And we miss it sometimes because we're so focused on the destination, we miss the journey. We're so focused on, I got to get here, I got to get there. And until I get there, I'm not going to be okay. I'm guilty of this. I'll just tell you. And you miss the laugh, you miss the meal, you miss the delighting in your children, like you're talking about. Absolutely. And that's where a focus on the good and the good life and the whatever's positive, whatever's praiseworthy, whatever's noble, whatever, dwell on these things. That's what you're doing when you're delighting in your child over the dinner table. That's exactly right. And you're right. The journey, you know, let's not be so destination oriented. Let's realize today's part of my journey. I woke up. God has a purpose for me. I woke up. I never know if you're going to wake up. You don't know. And then you woke up. So you got today. And what about the journey can I dwell on? What can I delight in? How can I encourage somebody else? How can I email somebody out of the blue just to bless them and say, I'm thankful for you, or text them? Do weird things. Text people and just say, I like you. That kind of thing. And then delighting in your kids, like you said, this changes your life today. Yes. Didn't get to a new destination. You don't have to get to a new destination to do that. That can happen today for anybody. And so, great example.
Well, Dean, I really appreciate our time together. I feel like we could do this quarterly or something and keep talking.
Yeah, I'd love to
talk to you. I could talk to you for another hour, but we should.
You got to come on my show, by the way. I'm just saying. Yeah. I did yours. You got to do mine.
Oh, I'd love to do that, especially because you've got that beautiful setting. You know, you've got doors, and it looks so nice. And you know, I think you have a bigger budget than I do for my shows.
Well.
I appreciate that. I'd love to, you know, and sort of turn the tables around a little bit.
I'd love to do that. That'd be fun.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Let me know. But thanks so much for sharing your story, for being vulnerable, for being inspirational, for being honest. And in doing all that, you are a role model, because anybody can see, wow, that guy can do everything that he's done and share his story, and he cares, you know, and his love is emanating from him. So I appreciate it, Dean Wilson, and
thank you.
Look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.